So, question for you. If you're to look at our family right now, how would you say that we split the day-to-day physical workload? Like the driving, the trash, the laundry, the cooking, percentage-wise, roughly?
Percentage-wise, it's about 50-50 on an annualized basis, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the physical workload, we do a pretty good job of sharing of house chores, right? You do a lot of the cooking. You definitely take out the trash, which apparently is like the number one thing men do to contribute to the household, I've learned. But I do the laundry, right? And we kind of split the driving. How do you think we split the cognitive workload of our family life? The tracking of who needs what, planning activities, responding to birthday parties or field trip forms, teacher relationships.
So if you weren't here, I would take it all on. But because you're here and so good at taking it on, I think that you're taking on not just 80% of it, but you're taking on the most important, like, the square root of that. You're taking on the most important, like 64%. And I'm taking on like 4%. That's the way that I would think.
Can you think of any examples?
Just collecting the children every day. Like collecting them from school, not even physically, but you do that.
Yeah,
physically.
Collecting in the Gordon Neufeld, Gabor Mate way of attachment parenting, collecting and orienting the children.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you are their sun, moon, and stars. And I'm there to support their sun, moon, and stars, but they don't see me as the person, like, they will behave very well for me, just in the same way that they're behaving very well today, I'm sure, on their field trip with their coach. But when they get home, they're going to let it all out. And who are they going to let it out to? To you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably very true across families, is because there needs to be someone that the buck stops with. All of the bucks stop with that person. It's not like I can share and be like, okay, you collect the kids at the end of the day on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I will do that and like be their emotional support. And if they go to you, I'll be like, no, it's my day.
Right. It doesn't really work
that way. It does not work like that.
It doesn't really work that way. Yeah.
Right?
From the time they're born, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so the physical stuff, at least, like, you're good at delegating stuff back to me, like whether it's like, hey, this is going to be a time when I'm taking on stuff, use that time to support our family. Or like, hey, I'm going to be reading to them and I'm going to be, like engaged in this book for the older two. Like, please take Maverick and go read him a Star Wars book so that I can like engage, in what I think is a good, really important ritual.
Right. But I'm still orchestrating.
Totally.
Yeah. So the bedtime routine, even your participation, you are just another member of the band.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not. You don't have to collect me in the sense that like I need to come to you with my emotions. I do come to you with a lot of like other things during that time too, and I recognize that.
Stop, Greg.
Yeah. But yeah, this mental load, I'm so aware of, and I'm so acutely aware of this in teams as well, because I don't think this is like from college. Working on group projects, like there's always somebody that takes that on and everybody else looks to that person.
Right. Well, it's really hard to like diversify that role. I think that, you know what I mean? Like to share responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Can I give you some research, some facts around this? Yeah. So there's a study out of USC in 2024, a pretty large and expansive one, that measured that as far as cognitive divide in households, women carry 73% of the cognitive workload. So pretty much what you said, right? That it's like 80-20 for us, right? And that holds true even when a family has higher earnings or the mother is employed.
Sure.
So, and what they found is that sometimes when there are higher earnings and the mother is employed, physical labor can be alleviated from both partners, such as by having a nanny, right? Or paying for more aftercare. But the cognitive labor is sticky. And so the women still end up carrying more. So think about like who manages the nanny.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yep.
And there's another study published in 2026 coming out of Oxford University Press. And they found that even for couples that operate fairly equally
Mm-hmm.
when they get married, that becoming parents actually traditionalizes the workload.
Mm-hmm.
So even if when they are newlyweds, they split things more evenly, the woman ends up absorbing the new cognitive load that comes with having a family.
100%. I mean, it starts with the feeding and then it just continues, right? Like we watched this show on Apple TV, Margot's Got Money Troubles.
Yeah.
And there's a custody battle. And like the whole time, the undertone is like, you cannot separate the child and this mother. Like they are actually joined at the hip.
Yeah.
Whereas the father who has money and means to provide has no relationship with this child whatsoever. And
Right.
probably wouldn't if he, wasn't making a big stink of it.
Right.
So at the end of the day, that enmeshment that starts at the beginning, like there's a lot of inertia there, right? And that just continues.
Yeah. And, what we're finding is that the woman remains this thinker in chief, regardless of who earns more or who works longer hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a particularly persistent and sticky challenge. And I guess the question that I'm sitting with is this a challenge? Like, one of my favorite quotes from Alan Watts is problems that remain persistently unsolvable may be questions asked in the wrong way. And so this is kind of a question that I'm left with. So I want to talk to you about, this woman, Eve Rodsky, and her concept of fair play. She's written 2 books, and I think there's a lot of incredible wisdom in what she is suggesting if we want to truly even out this cognitive workload.
Bring it on.
And I don't want to sound like a trad wife when I say this, but part of me does wonder whether balancing equally the cognitive workload is the way to happiness and meaning in a family.
Right.
I think that a lot of what I'm going to share with you, and even just kind of the line of questioning of a number of these surveys, assumes once we achieve that more balanced cognitive workload, that the family will be, fill in the blank, happier,
Right.
more life satisfaction. And I'm just going to throw out there that I'm not sure that's the case.
I mean, I'll save it for later, but I've got several anecdotes that would argue the complete opposite.
Yeah. So let's get into it a little bit, because I do think that Eve's work has a lot of redeeming ideas and concepts that are worth talking about.
Sure.
And so her book, Fair Play, has a lot of great advice, but 2 aspects of her system that I want to talk about today are the minimum standard of care and the core rule of total ownership. So this idea of total ownership, really, she calls it CPE, conception, planning, and execution. So whoever holds a household task is not just responsible for the execution of it, right? And to get Jungian on you for a moment, like execution is a core masculine dynamic, right? And so typically a man may bring a child to a birthday party. And this happens in our family all the time, right? But who receives the invitation? Who responds to the invitation? Who makes sure the kid has the right clothes for the party, gets the present, right? Who does all those things?
No, it's always, almost always.
Right. So even if you take Maverick, which, he's a boy, and I've asked you to take him to more parties, honestly, already, I do all the planning.
Right.
All the conceptualizing.
Something broke my brain a little bit yesterday, though, on this topic.
Tell me.
So our friend said to us that she is a couple friend that clearly follows this, and that one of them is wholly responsible for the category of memories.
Yes.
I thought that was really crazy at first. And I've been sitting with this for the last 12 hours. And I'm like, that's actually something that brings some more equality to the situation, but feels like a task that is designed for the partner that doesn't have to collect the kids and respond to the RSVPs and do all that stuff.
Interesting.
So I bet that there's a bunch of hidden examples just like that throughout our lives where I'm probably owning 80% of those, but it hasn't been named, and I should own 100% and name it.
So by being keeper of memories, what you're saying is like, because you're not in the thick of things, you can design
Well,
the memories?
partially because I'm not in the thick of things, because I manage our technology. Let's go one level deeper into what that actually looks like.
Yeah.
Because I manage the photo albums like in the cloud. Let's talk about how we turn those into, something that actually is dejunked instead of just has like a boatload of pictures that we never really look at. How do we document like different occasions in our lives, and it doesn't even need to be me doing it. I could hire a photographer to come and do something. Like that idea of owning memories it's a really cool one.
It is a really cool one. You're already highlighting the tension though, because here's what comes up for me.
Yeah.
When you hear that idea of being the keeper of memories, it seems like to me you're like, oh, this feels like something I can own from conception to planning to execution in perpetuity. And I'm like, wait, I'm here too. And I don't know that I want you to take that over for the next 20 years.
Sure.
And so part of the fair play system is actually that so the second aspect of this is the minimum standard of care. And you and I talk about this a lot, which is like, what does good look like?
Yeah.
Right? We talk about it at work. It's just like a minimum standard of like, what are we about? And it gets to our family values. And so agreeing on a minimum standard of care is also a key aspect of this fair play system. Now, as I understand it, her work also involves reshuffling the deck and trading cards out, sometimes even weekly.
Got it.
And again, I think this really gets into that masculine versus the feminine, where it's like, I see something just in one single conversation that lights you up, which is, I want to own this and I want to take ownership over this like forever. And I already have feelings of what they call maternal gatekeeping.
Right.
Where I don't want you to take that fully from us.
That makes total sense. It's basically like, you can't, if you're producing a movie and the director is sitting there that you hired that director to do it for a reason. But if that director isn't like having a conversation with you about the things that they're doing and about the way that they're approaching it and about how they're going to spend the money, and they just like kick you out of the room and they're like, no, thanks. Like, this is my show. Like, you're going to feel a real certain way about that. And I think what I just said about like owning memories and like, oh yeah, I can manage the photos and I can do this, had no consideration for the fact that they're memories of the family. It was just like, oh, it's a technology thing to own.
And it comes from, I think, the best of intentions.
No, of course. No, but
like,
you
want to contribute. You love our family too.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is, quite frankly, a landmine for you to figure out where and how to contribute, because I love to be in control of pretty much everything.
Right. Well, I think that questioning the framework is actually the first step, because that seems to be where this is going. And like, maybe it's a good framework to trade cards and even have cards. Maybe the framework of total ownership is not taking into account people's opinions and feelings, and actually will stir up more, and it creates a lot of inefficiencies in the process by handing this back and forth or not.
Yeah, and I think all couples have to decide what makes sense for them. And maybe that periodicity or that frequency with which you shift can be kind of like a lever, right?
Yeah.
That maybe the keeper of memories changes 3 times a year, but if I never take out the trash again in my life, I'm fine with it.
Right.
I think that this point on maternal gatekeeping, I just want to be like clear about the concept. And so it's the idea that when a partner, typically a wife, unconsciously undermines the efforts of the husband because they want the task done their way. So, if I'm going to hand over a task, I have to accept that you might come home with the wrong brand of peanut butter. Even though, of course, One Trick Pony is the only peanut butter option out there, in case anyone needs to know. The only peanut butter option.
Incredible. Yeah, no, that's true. I think what you're actually saying is like, if you're going to totally delegate something, of course, But like, when does that actually happen without a
Well,
conversation?
that's the idea though. Like that's the
Yeah, but there's always a conversation about like what good looks like in this house, at least.
I think that's what's important. That again, it's like the conception, the planning, the execution, and the minimum standard. But I can't say for sure that like if we're talking about the grocery task,
Yeah.
we're necessarily going to say, this is the brand of peanut butter that you need to buy. What if you wanted to have the leeway, the agency to try a new type of peanut butter? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And like, didn't you know that I've tried all of them and every single one gives Maverick eczema except for this one?
Right.
Just by way of example.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
So there's this, again, it's like the unconscious undermining of someone's efforts. And I think that I'm really guilty of that. Not necessarily with peanut butter. It's really hard for me to figure out where I want support, quote unquote. And that automatically assumes that like I'm the default parent and I should be picking and choosing where you should slot in.
Yeah. There's a lot of compounding that happens, whether you are aware of it or not, in the subconscious, that you don't actually have to triangulate and communicate back to yourself that you would have to communicate to anyone else, a school, a teacher, a coach, and me. By watching these kids grow and seeing them day in and day out, you're forming patterns about what the next step is. And so
Yeah.
you're able to meet their needs where they are currently and stretch them just a little bit each day to get to that place where you want everyone to be, right?
Yeah.
And that might not be like I don't want to say sexiest job. It's like extremely, it fires a lot of neurons.
Yeah. It's
For
like higher
sure.
order.
It's definitely higher order thinking. But like, what's actually more important than monitoring that? And so I do think that you're talking about, like, I don't want to delegate away the thing that I feel I'm doing and providing a lot of value to these kids, myself, my mental model, my husband, and hopefully society as these kids grow and flourish.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of risk in delegating any of that. So I totally understand where you would be coming from by.
Well, and I really like it.
Right.
Right. And so that I think that is where the tension comes in, I think. And I think that this is particularly complex around what comes from sharing, balancing out those tasks. And I think it's a scary space to be.
Right. And every time I've kind of offered and danced around certain things that where I felt like I could give you a break, the gut check that you've provided back to me is like, no, I might seem like that's overwhelming to me at times, but I really like that. And so it's important that I have my space to do it. And please don't be in my space while I'm doing it.
You mean like in the morning?
Like in the morning, or just like, there's been certain times where we've had conversations about like sharing more of that load. And because that's what I thought that you might want.
Right.
And I quickly realized that it is not.
Right. I mean, you were like, hey, kids, let's go and get mommy her birthday balloons
Yeah.
and decorations. And I was like, no,
No.
don't leave me. Like, this is my birthday. I want to be with everyone. I don't want you guys to leave me alone while you go do that thing. Like, that feels bad.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm like, okay, it's my birthday, so I'm allowed to say that. But also, this came from such a sweet place in Greg. Like, what is wrong with me that I can't allow them that space to go and do something nice for me? And that's just honestly where I'm at. And maybe 5 to 10 years from now, maybe if I was a more evolved person than I am today, like I would be okay with you guys leaving me to go do something nice for me. But it's just not where I am today.
Yeah. I think it comes back to when I tried to own some of this, what I see in your eyes is, no, that's not sexy. Like when I do it, I'm getting, meaning you, when you're saying to yourself or to me, when I do it, I'm getting fulfillment, value, even though it's hard, even though I don't like it at times. Like this is the thing that I get to have total ownership over for the most part, and get to clue you in on where you can help me. And if you start trying to take that from me, like instead of doing the thing that you do, which is be a provider,
Mm-hmm.
like that takes you down a little.
I don't even know if I've allowed myself to get there because truly like my mama bear comes out.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I see red and I'm like, no. Like you don't, these are mine. Like I don't, and you're a wonderful father.
Thank you.
I don't mean to lighten your experience at all. I am selfish with our time, with our
Yeah.
time with our children
Mm-hmm.
and with their, I also think it's hard. It's kind of like a too many cooks in the kitchen thing.
Right.
Like I really value maintaining strong relationships with our kids' teachers.
Yeah.
And I think that works well as a one-to-one.
Yep.
If you were in there, if I was CCing you on all the emails or text messages, or you were having your own, I think that would like muddy the waters a bit.
It doesn't work. And you can sidebar with me about this, but if I'm coming in, I'm going to approach it slightly differently, or I could, say something that isn't what you would want to say. And as we talked about on previous episodes, like, the decision is not just about the decision. It's about who bears the responsibility.
Right. For what happens next.
For what happens
sure.
next. Right. And so that's another piece of this. And so,
yeah, that's actually a great point, because even if you are to own the conception, planning, and execution, there's that like fourth element, which is what happens next.
Yeah.
And regardless of, it's interesting, just take the birthday party example. Even if you were to respond to the invitation, take the kid to the birthday party, dress them, and buy the present, if you bought a present that wasn't a good present, who do you think ultimately people would be,
of course,
like, I don't want to say blaming,
no,
blaming.
yeah, there's a silent.
Who would bear that responsibility?
Absolutely you.
Yeah.
Absolutely you.
Yeah. And so some of it is even outside of our own family life,
Yeah.
right?
No, of course. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm going to like stay in my lane, and because there can be wider lanes, right? As we've seen, the pie of, I think, from when we were growing up to our kids today, the amount of time that they spend with their parents after COVID, work from home, all these things has grown significantly. They are with me way more than they would be if I worked anywhere else, right?
Right.
And you and I are together 90% of the time.
It's a low estimate.
Yeah, it's a low.
98% of the time.
Sometimes I'm in the bathroom.
Sometimes you take a long time in the bathroom. That's what I was going to say too.
But seriously, like the pie is growing. You sent me this Axios report, or it was probably a summary of someone else's data.
Bloomberg, of course.
Bloomberg.
Yeah.
That said
two very masculine news wires.
That men in all types of jobs were spending less time working and more time with their kids.
Mostly high earning jobs.
Now the data was in 2017 to 19 window compared to 22 to 24.
Yeah.
So it might have been still like COVID bubble skewed, but I think that is going to be an increasing trend. And that doesn't even take into account AI, right? So like the productivity gains and some of the near term, I hate to say it, but job losses and employment situations, especially among high earners, are going to give them these situations where they're at home with their kids.
Yep.
I take probably 1 to 2 calls a week that are work related in our car from the kids' jiu-jitsu classes in the parking lot. And when I say that to some other dads that I'm on calls with, which is most of the people I'm on calls with these days, they're like, I totally get it. I spend so much time in the car. And like, I don't think that was true 10 years ago.
No. I mean, certainly not when we were growing up,
Yeah.
right? And probably not even 10 years ago. Yeah, like the ability for fathers to contribute to extracurriculars, I think probably has shifted significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that there should be more cards in the fair play deck as a result of this. I do think that there should be more conversations about what people enjoy doing. But I don't know if the cognitive load shifting is actually going to change as a result of the expanded time with kids and family and stuff. I just don't know if that's actually going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, for us, like what really comes up for me is that I don't know that I want it to shift.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of reminds me, I almost wish there was like a, 5 love languages type quiz for like, What aspects of the cognitive load do you enjoy? Like getting a little bit more nuanced about it,
Yeah,
if you will?
sure.
And what aspects would you be comfortable offloading?
Yeah.
Right? Because I think it can be a very personal conversation, like from family to family, as far as like what elements are important to the mom, to the person
Right.
who's currently bearing most of that load.
Well, I think that it's more akin to a product manager or a head of product than it is to being a CEO, because the cognitive load in managing a product or in building a product has everything to do with the inner workings of the product, with the infrastructure, with the people building it, with the culture, with how the code is written,
Right.
with the design schema, with the interfaces, like all of those things. And if you hand off anything to anybody and they start reporting to you, like that's lossy,
Yeah.
right? Thoughts are lossy.
I guess this is kind of the thing that I feel like, a lot of times what we do on this podcast is we translate business principles to family life.
Yeah.
This fair play concept is one that is custom designed for family life, right? I don't think it translates well into business. And I think that's part of where I'm also struggling, where it's like, I would never ask you to change from product manager to CEO from week to week.
Right.
Because I think there's a real benefit from being close to the code, right? And I don't see how splitting that up, saying you work on this project and I'll work on this project and we'll both be close to the code, and then we'll both also be responsible for being like CEO visionaries in certain
It's the
aspects.
co-CEO the problem.
It doesn't ring true to me.
No.
And so I think that outsized rewards gain from like compounding. And so if there is one person, like I feel like there should be a different way to split it, where there's persistent gains and compounding because I, week after week, am bearing this portion of the cognitive load.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So to recap then, I want to just say that I think that it's a really important and worthwhile pursuit to have the conversation about what good looks like to each party.
Yeah.
And recognizing that I think that you and I could definitely think more about conception, planning, and execution, and maybe asking you to own a bit more of some of that stuff. It's going to be hard for me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it's going to be hard for me. But if there is a space where I do want that, or a time when I'm feeling that would be supportive to me, I think this idea of not necessarily handing over more things to execute, but asking you to take over some of the conception and planning is a worthwhile thing to think about.
Yeah. Or at least to figure out how to give you leverage on some of the things that aren't necessarily levered up.
Yeah. So let's keep doing that.
Yeah. Let's work on that.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for chatting about this.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I like this space.
Love you, Goosey.
Love you, Goosey.